You hear that guitar going, you know what that means? That it's the red zone time. Red zone time. It's Thursday, 9 p.m. Eastern, ready to rock and roll. But these next couple of weeks, it's all about the podcast mash. Great idea by that guy up there in Massachusetts, Dean and Chris brought this idea of getting all these educators together over summer and reflecting of who we are and where we're going forward. And you know what? You can't go wrong with all of these educators, with all of these guests before you. And it's another day, another week of free PD. So if you are in Alaska, if you're in Hawaii, if you're in New York, or you're in Florida, or anywhere in the 48 middle, we need you. If you're watching this on the rebroadcast, like it and share it, but also add your comments because you know what? We're only stronger together. And remember, iron sharpens iron. How about that, Dean Packard?
Hey, Josh Tovar, you're on fire again, my friend. I tell you, your lead-ins get better and better every time you come on, man. I think you practice during the week. There's no doubt about it. Hey, everybody, my name is Dean Packard, the proud principal of Bay Path Vocational Technical High School in Charlton, Massachusetts. That's right, high school. I'm out of the middle school, and I finally graduated up to a high school where I first started my career, and I'm having an absolute blast working with some great people. Hey, again, Unlock the Middle was started for reasons like bringing people together across the country like this who have like-minded thoughts to make everybody else a little bit better around them. So great to have you guys with us tonight. Let's go around the room really quickly. Introduce yourself, where you're from, and what your role is. Brian Miller first, please.
Hey, I'm the new principal at North Middle School in Great Falls, Montana. I've been in elementary school the past couple of years, high school principal before that, and I'm excited for the middle school role. So go Grizz.
I love it. The middle school is a great place to be. Did it for 20 years. Good stuff. Fonz, you're up.
Hey, everybody. My name is Fonz Mendoza. I am an instructional tech for a small school district here in the beautiful Rio Grande Valley, the southernmost tip of Texas. This is going to be my 17th year in education, 11 years as a classroom teacher, all the way from ninth grade algebra to fifth and sixth grade math, science, social studies, and now my 7th year in this role as an instructional tech.
Outstanding. Welcome back, Fonz. You've been with us a few times. Casey, you're up.
Hey, I'm going to try to keep that energy level going here. I'm an instructional facilitator at Sage Valley Junior High in Gillette, Wyoming. I've been in education for a little over 20 years now.
Great stuff right there. Another middle guy. And Brian.
Hey, I'm Brian Martin. I'm a second grade teacher from Western New York.
Second grade teacher. God bless you, man. I love that. That is a great age right there. All right, we're going to go backpedaling right now. And I got that first question that I have out for this. Your origin, a little bit about your story. Talk about how you got where you are and about the position that you're serving right now. Just a few lines about that. Brian, why don't you start off? We're going to go backwards.
Way back when I was terrible in school, never wanted anything to do with school, but knew I wanted to make a change and impact lives. In my senior year, an English teacher looked at me and said, "You're a good writer." After I turned in a writing prompt, 3 years later, I decided I wanted to be an English teacher. 5 years after that, was content being an English teacher, and a principal said, "I think you need to be a principal." I said no, and he talked to me about, hey, if you really want to make a difference, step into a new role and influence more lives. So it's just people influencing, speaking into my life.
Nice. That's great stuff. Fonz.
All right. Well, I'm a businessman turned educator. I've a marketing degree, never wanted to go into education, fell into education and absolutely fell in love with it, and always use my marketing principles as we are trying to always sell ourselves to our students, which really helped me develop personalized learning skills for my students, building great community, and always knowing what my students' needs are and were. And that led me into this current role since I am tech savvy and always willing to take some risks. Now I serve as the district instructional technologist and now working on my doctorate in educational technology. Woo! And again, fell into a profession that I never wanted to do, but I absolutely fell in love with every aspect. And very much like Brian stated earlier, just wanting to make a difference, make a change, and just add some more techiness into our space.
Dr. Fonz, that has a good ring to it.
Another good ring to it. And no one's going to slow that train down. No way at all. I love it. Casey.
So I was an accounting major, well into it until I took a class with Dr. Michael Flam, a history class. I absolutely loved it and realized that was going to be a much better use of my time. I was in the classroom for 20 plus years, but I think I aged into being ready to coach up adults. So now I'm an instructional facilitator.
Great stuff. Love that. Brian Martin.
Yeah, so I started out going into college. I was a child that watched the Rambos and the Commandos with Arnold and Sylvester. So I was like, man, I want to help people, but I want, the adrenaline and everything. So I started going into law enforcement, and I got into those classes and realized, it's just not my personality. And I was in the basketball court one day and I was talking to this kid and he's like, yeah, I'm going into elementary education. and I thought I loved kids. My parents, my grandparents were educators, and just from that basketball game on, that's how I became a second grade teacher.
And boom, drop the mic, and there you are, right there. JT, take it.
And you all have an audience in your podcast. They know a lot about you, but this is an open venue that people might not know who you are. So this is a two-part question, Fonz. Who inspired you, Fonz, to enter education, or what inspired you? And currently, part two of that question is, who motivates you right now to keep that fire burning, especially after the nonsense of the last 3 years?
Well, that's a great question, actually. I never wanted to be in education, but obviously there was a fork in the road moment. I had to make myself readily available to my parents. Being an only child was tough growing up here. And so my parents depended a lot on me being the language broker. English was not my first language, but being a language broker. And then my dad fell ill. So I needed to just reassess my situation. And of course, the job that I had in marketing and advertisement did not give me enough time to care for him at the time. But he's doing well now. He's going to be 87 in October. But that kind of led me into education, and I fell into education. And I can actually go back to the moment in ninth grade biology class, and it was everybody always mentions a teacher, but my story I think might be a little unique, where it was a substitute teacher actually that kind of just planted that little seed. And sometimes we plant the seed, sometimes we water the seed, sometimes we reap those rewards, but he was the one that planted that seed. And I always go back to Mr. Rodriguez for the way he made us feel when he came to sub for Mr. Margot's biology class. And when I fell into education in my first year, second year, third year, I started to realize that what it was for me was planting the seeds, and that I wouldn't see those rewards possibly till later on, or maybe not even, because as kids grow up, they move out. But when I saw Mr. Rodriguez one day in a clinic, he wasn't doing too well. He was a lot older. He walked up to the water fountain. I walked up behind him and I said, Mr. Rodriguez. And he kind of looked at me already with a lot of gray hair, and he couldn't recognize me. He's like, I'm sorry, I'm a lot older. My memory's not there. And I just went and told him, I said, I just want to let you know that I am an educator now. And it's because of the way that you made me feel and what you did for me. And I shared with him what he did, and his eyes just filled up with tears. And right then and there, I knew that I was in the right profession, because I wanted to make a difference and a change just like he did for me. And as far as the second part of the question, this is already a 3 years and a couple months now going into podcasting, 211 episodes. I just finished one up right now prior to this show, going strong, just bringing those conversations and technology. And, and we cover everything, but mainly a lot of technology and creator shows that we have. But again, with the outcome of having those conversations that are tough, and really just putting the information out there. And so to light the fire for that, it's really just like I mentioned to you, that passion and that drive that I have to want to make a difference. And even if it's just for one teacher to go out there and do what Mr. Rodriguez did many times over, to me, that's really what matters the most.
Love it. Mr. Rodriguez, saludos. Casey.
Yeah, so there are a number of people in my life who contributed to me becoming a teacher. I can think about my fourth grade teacher, Mr. D, Mr. Dennison, Mr. Donut. Love that guy. I had a high school shop teacher. I had him as a teacher for 4 years. Great inspiration. But I'm going to acknowledge something that I think is unfortunately true, which is we often say just the teacher. And so I think in the back of my mind, I dismissed that as a career. And I went a different direction. But when I went to that class with Dr. Michael Flam, and it was a survey level history class, but he absolutely crushed it. He talked about people, he made connections, and to me that felt like a real thing that I could do. I could spend my life connecting to people, maybe having a positive influence on them, and so that's why I chose it. And the reason I continue to do this is all of the great people that I work with, whether we're talking about the students or the adults. This is such a fulfilling career. I couldn't imagine doing something different.
Brian Martin.
Yeah, so I would say probably the person that influenced me the most, I would say, had to be my mom. I guess, you think back to all the teachers that you've had, and I had some unbelievable ones. My basketball coach, I ended up coming back and teaching in my same hometown that I grew up in. and he became one of my best friends. So, he played a big role, but it go back to my mom and just seeing what she did every single day, every single night. She was at the kitchen table doing schoolwork and everything, and seeing what she did, I guess, from an early age, just planted so many seeds. And when you're around that all the time, I guess like subconsciously, it just gets planted in there. And then, who keeps you inspired? I guess, all of us have podcasts, right? And the people at school that I work with, amazing. But when you're a podcast host, we have the opportunity to connect. Like on this podcast right now, we got Texas, Wyoming, Montana, up in the New England area, Western New York. You get to meet people from all across the country. And a lot of these people are doing so many amazing things, and people fuel you. I mean, it can fuel you in a negative way, or it can fuel you in a positive way. And I think all of us could say that every single person that we have the opportunity to connect with is fueling that positive stuff. So, when I get on Twitter and I see everything that Josh Tobar is putting out with his students, or what Dean is putting out, it pushes you to be a little bit better. So, I thank all you guys for fueling that fire.
Awesome. Mr. Miller.
Yeah, like I said, my 12th grade English teacher, when I got into university, it was Mr. Palladino, who just, if I did anything in the classroom, it was inspired by that guy. And so we just kind of I have like these, like anybody else, these kind of pillars along the way. But I just got back from the NAESP conference out there in DC, and I came back and I got back at 1:30 last night. My wife asked me today, she's like, did you go around DC? And I said, I did not leave a 3-block radius of my hotel. Because at some point I discovered, like, I can go see DC, and I've been there maybe 10, 15 years ago, and there's some cool stuff, and there's some historical sites that are pretty fantastic. But I was able to hang out with Daniel Bauer for an evening from the Better Leaders, Better School podcast. I got to hang out with a couple just different people that I'd met in different conferences. And that's, I'm not going to put that necessarily on Facebook because that's not like this monument in the background, but those are the conversations that I'm going to carry forever. Those are the things that I wrote about in the journal on the flight home. Those are the things that matter because they inspired me, and their passion and their excitements and what they're doing in their schools. And I don't know, it's just the people that you meet along the way that, just like you were saying, Brian, they ignite you. They remind you on those really shitty days where you're just kind of struggling, and you talk to somebody and they're reminding you of the passion that they have for kids and the things that they are doing in their classrooms and the things that they're doing in their schools. And you're like, yeah, this is why I want to be a part of this. So,
the heavy work that you all do each and every single day takes a burden on all of us, and you have to find your self-balance. You drop down time, the time to be yourself, the time to redefine yourself. So talk about what summer rejuvenation looks like for you guys. I know you head into conferences. I know you're looking at that betterment, but what does it mean to be able to, walk the walk, so to speak, to say, we tell our educators, dial it back, find your happy place. What are you guys doing? Let's go. Hey, I'll tell you who's going to go. Brian Miller, go ahead.
Yeah, I hang out with Casey on Wednesdays. We continue the podcast. That's what we do.
I love it. Yeah.
The bird's eye view. I don't know. I mean, I don't have summers off anymore in my new role, so I'm working all summer long. But the rejuvenation that I have is that ability to kind of step back and get out of the weeds, and you kind of see the big picture. Go and have coffee with somebody, and you can have coffee till 8:30, and you can kind of learn about their life and those kinds of things. That's rejuvenation. Hanging out with my family. I don't know if you guys noticed this, but I'm actually in my chicken coop right now because I got 5 kids in a small 4-bedroom house, and there's not a place to be here. And I just love it. Right? I love being in my backyard. I love hanging out with my kids. We go camping, all the things that we do. But it's just being able to step back and seeing the big picture of, I love my work. I love the students. I love the staff. But every now and then I need to step back and say, but there's also life around this that I want to enjoy as well.
Good stuff right there. Casey, why don't you take a shot back at Brian?
Yeah, I thought I was going to take a break, and that was going to be the way I would rejuvenate, but he won't stop calling me. For me, this really has to be about reflection, but I want to do things that allow me to reflect while also being a little more relaxed. So that means going to concerts, listening to some really good music, read some good books, spending some time with friends and family. All of that's going to allow me to decompress a little bit, but also allow me to kind of process the things that we experienced in the past year and start to think about what I want to do in the future.
Awesome. Brian Martin.
Yeah, so it's nice to being the only teacher here. I don't have to work during the summertime, so I get to push that alarm clock back a little bit. So that's nice to sleep in a little bit longer. It gives a chance to slow it down and, work out a little bit longer, to go to the nephew's baseball games, but also I find it hard during the school year sometimes to really like learn like different things, explore different things that I want as much, because the brain is so filled with so many other things. So this really allows me to explore other fields besides like education to really learn and pick up on things.
Fonz, take it from there.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I only get 2 weeks off, and I'll be back to work already on Monday. But so as far as rejuvenation and doing all those things, you really kind of have to squeeze that in a tight window. But I make sure to space some time out, especially once summer hours start. We work 4/10s, so we can get Fridays off. So I kind of dialed back a little bit on the podcasting too, so I can just definitely spend some more time with my wife, doing some travels on the weekends, and just taking care of the honeydew list. And that really could be even fulfilling, just to do a little care around the house and little touch-ups and just working together, and getting that time that you normally don't get during the school year, because it's like go 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 go. So for me, that is definitely rejuvenation, spending time with my wife. But to be honest with you guys, also it's really being behind the mic and having some amazing conversations that really fill my bucket. I mean, I get so pumped, and much like Brian Miller was stating, that you have those conversations that you really will take with you for a very long time, that you can write down on your journal, that you can look back on. And just like Josh always says, it's all about iron sharpening iron. And, that's the only way that we can continue to get better and have those conversations. But that's really just kind of like that little combination that I have as far as self-care is concerned, for me.
Nice. So we can't assume that everyone knows all the different podcasts that are out there, because there's a lot of them. So let's do a little bit background in regards to number one. How did you start, or what was the genesis to you beginning your podcast? And what is your niche? Who is your audience? Who are you looking to connect with? Brian Martin.
Yeah, I started my podcast right when COVID hit. I guess I was using it as a way, like, originally it started like to get a little credentials to go into like speaking and to go into presenting. But then it's transformed where it's just such an awesome experience, like everybody's saying, to connect with people from all over and everything. So I guess that's the big piece. And like, I would say my podcast is geared toward someone that's probably in the middle of their career. Like, if you want to whittle it down, someone that's in the middle of their career that really is passionate about teaching, but sometimes we've all been in the places where that negativity can seep in, or it's like, what voices do you allow in your head? So hopefully my podcast, it's just highlighting some positive voices, people that need a little escape, a little something that hopefully puts a little smile on their face, that can pick up some tidbits and just enjoy some good conversation.
Love it. Fonz.
All right. Well, for me, again, very similar to Brian Martin that just stated, April 10th of 2020, once COVID, was around and everything shut down, I decided to hit record and did my first live stream. And I do all my podcasts live, so which is something that a little different than what, like many do, but everything that we do is live. And I had the opportunity to do that because what happened is I was part of a global group of educators that were putting on virtual conferences and just virtual trainings to help our teachers that are transitioning, that maybe not be too tech savvy, but just giving them the tools to feel comfortable. And just like I always said, just getting clicky with it, having some fun, and just trying to implement some of those tools to help ease, the workload that they have, and just to get familiar with the tech. But eventually, after episode 1 and episode 2, I was more concerned about the well-being of the teachers. So then it turned more into something, I know it's called My Ed Tech Live, but it was more of like, hey, how are you doing? I want to know what your obstacles are, what your troubles are, what's happening, how did you overcome that? And just to share those things with a lot of the audience members. And then now, 200 episodes in, we're focusing, like I said, even though it's called My Ed Tech Live, I do find if there's somebody that's doing some great work in any field, not just technology, I definitely have them on as a guest, because I want the world to know what it is that they're doing. And of course, we'll talk a little bit of tech, but that's really what it is. is, and it's geared for anybody at all levels of technology use. You're definitely going to find something for everything there, from different platforms, found directly from founders that have been on the show as well. And so, again, all it is just to help equip you, give you those little knowledge nuggets that you can sprinkle onto what you are already doing great.
So both of you take it away. Those are single man show. You got a pair show right there. So tell the audience,
I'll get
guys,
started.
how you wanna do this.
Yeah, I'll start it because Brian and I have been friends. Brian Miller and I have been friends for a long time, and over cold drinks, we would kind of nerd out on education, and it almost sounded like a couple of guys having a podcast. And we joked about it a little bit that we should go ahead and just hit the record button. But it was my wife that kind of pushed it a little bit more and reached out to Brian and said, "Hey, no, you guys really need to do this," knowing that I probably would not have taken the initiative. And so at the beginning of the last school year, the 2022-23 school year, we just started as the school year started. And we kept it going throughout the school year and have had a lot of fun doing it. And as far as who it's for, and I'll let Brian take over as soon as I finish this sentence, but it's for anybody that considers himself an educational leader. And Brian's always really good about talking about what that means.
Well, for us, we define leadership as if you're responsible for the life of another, you're a leader to some capacity, right? So that's anybody in education, including students. But I think what we've decided to do or wanted to do is, because he's right. Like we would go out, there's 4 of us, we used to work together in the same school. We'd go out for drinks, we meet together during the school day. And suddenly Casey and I are just kind of geeking out in the corner, just talking about education and all their other things. And so it's just kind of very natural for us because we're passionate about it and we get excited about it. But what we've discovered is that educators have a hard time just wrestling through hard discussions. We don't want to indicate in any way that we don't have the answer, or that we're struggling with an idea, or that we're just struggling in life in general. And so we just started hanging out together and just, let's wrestle with it together. Let's spend some time kind of researching some solutions, and let's kind of take what topics that either we're wrestling with or we see people wrestling with around us, and let's spend some time really considering it, finding some solutions. And kind of like Brian Martin said, like, we'll wrestle with it. We'll acknowledge the hardships, but we're also going to try and give you some solutions, because that's what educators do, right? There's always a solution. There's always a path forward, and we're excited to help people kind of find those things.
Well, I would be remiss if I do not ask that young man up there. Hey, young man, how did you come up with Unlock the Middle?
Calling me on the carpet. It came across at a campfire at my house with Chris Starcheski, the principal of Dudley Middle School at the time, who's now the principal of Grafton Middle School. We came on together, and we decided we wanted to give back the field that was so good to us. We've both been very fortunate, and the jobs we've had, the people we've met, and the networks we've created. So we just tried to find a name, man. We went through a million different names, and for whatever reason, Unlock the Middle is right in the middle of the journey of education. You've got elementary just below, you've got the high school here, but you've got that no man's land from 10 to 14 about just development of children. And we said, why not give it a shot? And I remember when we first started off, we never knew what was going to happen. But honest to God, like 750 episodes later, I mean, we've had everybody you can think of on, man. And it's so cool because it's humbling to go back. Real honest, except for Joe. And Joe, if you're listening, it's all my fault. It's actually not Tovar's fault, so don't be mad at him. And I tried to give him credentials from the dinner table where I was with my family, but it still didn't work out. Nevertheless, but it doesn't matter. People have been so receptive to wanting to tell their stories. And I find that amazing, because all you educators, all you leaders out there, the stuff is right at your fingertips if you just want to look. Don't be afraid to step out of your silo and use social media as a way to become better. My gosh, don't fear it. Embrace it. But I would have never met Josh Tovar. I remember sending him a message. Hey, you want to join us? He has been nonstop since then. Josh is the Iron Man. He'll never take credit, but the guy doesn't sleep. I tell him, I shut my phone off. I don't even respond to him anymore. He texts me that much. But I do when I have to. But Josh, honestly, you are a real staple for what we're doing right now. And I appreciate everything you do, man. I appreciate hitching my wagon to you too.
Yes, sir.
It's all good stuff. Was it my turn now? I got to ask the next question. Yeah, I should know that. Dance. All right, very quickly here, guys. From all your shows, what have you learned the most, and which interview stands out the most to you? Let's go with Brian Martin first.
Oh, that's, I would say they all stand out. So I was just working on a presentation today. So I'll plug Kyle Hill, Recharge Ed family. I know Josh is
Yeah.
presenting on that, and Fonz, are you presenting on that too?
And I was
So
supposed
awesome.
to. I couldn't get there, unfortunately. He's
Yeah,
doing
so
great stuff.
yeah, he's a great guy. But so I was just preparing from that, and I was quoting Laney Rao a little bit from that. So, and author of Evolving with Gratitude, and one of the big things I was thinking about classroom culture, school culture. And one thing that she really talks about is when we're developing relationships with those students, that scientifically it's been said, like, we need 5 positive interactions for every one, like that redirection or that negative, feeding that to really build that relationship piece. So I guess just because I was thinking about her today, that I would mention her, but they're all, I think all of us would say that everybody that you interview has something to share. There's something to learn from.
Good stuff right there. Fonz, you're going to say Dean Packard. If you are, I'm going to say nice, man. I remember that interview. I'm teasing you. I am teasing you. You're up.
Yeah, no, you know what? Actually, and I'm going to be honest with you, and not just because he's here present, but one of the most memorable was Josh's interview, Josh Tovad, when he was on here. I had never heard or never had a principal on the show, and just the fact that he was just bringing straight fire that day, and just him. And again, this is because this is out there, this is live, but the fire that he brings, sometimes I wish that I could see some of that fire near me, somewhere in that area, that vicinity, because just the way that he just shared his passion for education and really making those connections, and the fact that he uses and leverages social media in a way that is just amazing to just build up the community. And what he does, one of my favorite lines, and that clip is a clip that I'll reuse and use, is the one where he says, "You can't have your desk growing out of your chest. You got to be out there, and you got to be in the halls, and you got to be there visible, and you got to make sure that when you get into that chair, you understand all the responsibility that comes with that chair." And just the way that he manages what he does, and then what he does on social media, and then what he's doing here now with all of these shows. I don't know where the guy really gets all that energy from, but Dean, like you said, he really is Iron Man. So he really is one of the most memorable guests that I have had. But again, they are all memorable because they all affect you in a special way. But that one, just to hear a principal just be honest and truthful and really walk the walk, really, really impressed me.
Good stuff right there. Casey.
Yeah, so our format's a little bit different. So we rarely have people that we interview. Instead, what we do is we take a deep dive into some of the things that we're struggling with. And I think one of the things that I've discovered along the way is having a plan is more important than having a perfect plan. An almost solution is absolutely just fine because it gives you something to anchor to. Now, in the course of doing this, we have had a few guests, and one of my favorites was Mary Jo Fresh. She's a literacy expert, former professor at Ohio State University. And we had her on at a time when there was a lot of conversation being had about literacy, and a lot of teachers were feeling insecure and saying, "Oh my gosh, have I been doing it wrong all these years?" And she came on and she reassured everybody that it's really about the fidelity of executing lessons and doing it well. And don't worry about whether or not you are using the right program or the right approach. Most importantly is you were attentive to your students and you were responding to their needs. And so I thought that was a great episode.
Ryan.
Casey, man. Casey's the best. Yeah. I tag team with shirts. He reminds me often, quickly find, we're called Shirts and Ties. Obviously, spelled his last name. He reminds me often he can always find another tie, and that it's hard for me to find another shirts. And so, but really, he's the best guest that I have, because I can kind of be a little bit come in fiery or come in with maybe just some rambunctious ideas. But Casey was one of the best teachers I ever knew and had the pleasure of teaching with. And he's one of the smartest men I know. And so for him to kind of be able to bring some of my radical ideas and give them some nuts and bolts, or to kind of challenge some of my perceptions and my ideas in a way that is sometimes just outright like you're wrong, but also in a way that allows me to think and to find new ideas and better ideas. So I don't know, Shirts, he's the man.
Josh, that was kind of you guys going back and forth right there, Casey. That's a great accolade for you, man.
Yeah.
Josh Tovar, you've been with me for a good year plus, man. Think about some of the guests we've had on. Who comes to mind for you that really helped you, just rethink about yourself or just taking it to the next level?
I believe that out of all the guests that obviously you all know that we have the 3 shows that this guy created up here. And so I feel that the way that the dean formulated the questions for Principal Cafele, it was not the traditional way of approaching someone of his stature. And the way he broke down within those questions about him, like specifically about him as a kid growing up in there, all that stuff is something that, as you all know, I follow him a lot. Those questions were not asked, and the way he presented himself, even he was like, "Oh, that's a good question. Like I've never been asked." So that individual in the Sunday show has been great. I think that on the Thursday show, like during this night, when we had the 5 state champion football coaches,
that was cool,
from Florida, Ohio, Texas, California, and talk to me.
Louisiana.
When we had those 5 at the biggest division in that state, they were the state champion coaches.
Yep.
What blew my mind away is that they all say the same damn thing. Holding kids accountable, walking on fire and dealing with the fire, and having the nonstop championship attitude. And it doesn't matter what part of the country they were at, they brought that fire. Does that make sense? It's the same philosophy for being a champion.
Same system, man. And absolutely, you're absolutely correct. You can recreate those systems if you just want to dig and find them, man. That's so smart. I'm glad you brought that up.
I think that all the Tuesday shows, those 20-minute shots with the scenarios, I think those are all badass. That's a great job, Dean, on those 20-minute shows.
If you give me credit one more time, man, I'm gonna promote you.
Whatever you see, it's a scenario. If you guys in the audience out there, you guys need to see it because you've got assistant principals, you've got area directors, and it's a scenario that we face regardless of a bench clearing fight, whether it be the cheerleading mom.
Yeah.
It's things that we all deal with, right? We all get deep down and dirty with that kind of stuff. So I think that those are the things that stand out for me.
Great points right there. All right, you're up, buddy. Go.
Okay. So, gentlemen, as we always say, iron sharpens iron. The purpose is to educate our team members or anybody that's within a sphere of influence. So put on your thinking cap, your memory cap, and we'll start off with you, Casey. Tell the audience 3 people you think they should follow. So right now, put that thinking cap on, because right now there's a lot of people. Like today at the conference here in NASSP, I've met people that are very famous, and they're like, "Oh my God, I'm sorry, I didn't know who you were," because we're within our own sphere. Does that make sense? If we don't reach out, we don't know new people. So within your audience and the people that you've talked or your personal relationships, who are 3 educators that someone needs to follow? Casey.
Well, I'm going to start with Brian Miller, and here's why you follow Brian. Because he's the emotional component. He talks about why our show works. It's because he shows up with the emotion, and then I show up with, I try to line that thing out. But it's the emotional piece that gets us connected and gets us inspired and wanting to do this thing. So follow him. Follow everybody on this screen. I'm a big fan of John Hattie, so I would say follow him. And the reason you do that is because we talk about using data, understanding what instruction works well, making sure that learning is visible. But he does such a great job of breaking down different instructional strategies. And I've met the guy a few times. And if you have a chance to actually follow him and the work that he does, you'll know it's not about the instructional strategy. It's about when you use those instructional strategies. And then I'm a big fan of Tom Schimmer as well. He's a solution tree guy. I love following his stuff. He has great conversation about grading practices, which I absolutely love. If you ever have a chance to see him speak, make sure you follow him as well. So those would be my 3.
Okay. None of you that are remaining can use any of those 3. All right. I'm just telling you right now, you cannot. All right. Let's go, Brian Martin.
All right. Yeah. You know what? I'll say just like Casey said, everybody on the screen, I think Josh, like if you don't follow Josh Tovar, which I'm sure if you're watching this show, you do, but you use social media the best that I've seen like an administrator use it as far as promoting. Dr. Chris Jones does a phenomenal job. Awesome guy. Seeing the Lead podcast. He's up there with you, Dean, up in the New England area. Also, like Dr. Darren Peppard, awesome guy. He has a great podcast leaning into leadership. This is a little bit different for you. I'm big on like mental strength. So out of the educational field, but there's a gentleman named Justin Sua. He is a sports psychologist for the Tampa Bay Rays, but he has a great podcast. He also he puts out these tweets like things to think about, like that mental health piece. And it's all about, like Brian Miller was talking about, solutions, not just focusing on the problem, but let's find solutions. And then this might be a little bit different, but if you're an elementary principal and you want to get some ideas from an elementary teacher that's absolutely crushing it, there's a woman by the name of Melissa Hayes, and she puts out a ton on social media. Just unbelievable. So those would be my three.
Love it. Fonz.
All right. Well, my three, number one, I would say my friend Elijah Carbajal. He's a podcaster, Shut Up and Teach podcast. He recently put out a book and he was on the show, and he's just amazing. Just the care that he puts into the guests and the questions. And he's definitely just sharing some great stuff with the amount of guests that he has. And it's allowed me to connect with some of his guests as well. So I really like him. I like my brothers in arms that I love, Punk Rock Classrooms. I have to give a big shout out to Mike Earnshaw and Josh Buckley. Those guys right from the get-go really welcomed me into this space and have been guests, both together and each on their own, and have been just doing amazing. And again, not being in that administrative seat, but hearing stories from administrators like they are really helps me see things that I've never seen before and see things from their perspectives. And that really helps develop me and my skill set too as well, because they talk about leadership and talking about just, bringing their passions into their work and, building a community based around that. So it would be those three right now, the two separate shows there. And the last one that I would probably say would probably be that I listen to in the mornings, and she just gets me like in a happy mood till I get to work, is definitely Evolving with Gratitude. Lainey Rao, I have to give my shout outs to her and kudos because she does a phenomenal job. And again, every Monday morning or whenever there's a show, I pop that in and it just sets the tone for me just to get to work, and I am good to go and ready. So yeah, those are my three podcasters that I would follow for sure.
Mr. Miller Montana.
I'm only going to give you one podcaster, but three people. So Danny Bauer, if you don't know Better Leaders podcast, which I think we all do, that guy. So I don't know how you guys feel, but we can oftentimes admire people from afar, right? They do great things. They have these the write-ups and these blog posts and these episodes, and then you meet them in person, and you feel like, where's the guy that I listened to? Like, where's that person? This is not the same person. And Danny Bauer was about as authentic and good of a guy as I've ever come across. And so it just made me fall in love with his material all the more because he lives it. That's who he is. He's not doing it for popularity. He's not doing it for likes. He's doing it because that's just who he is. I was able to see Principal Kefele this weekend, and that dude is a friggin' rock star. So if you don't know that guy, you need to go find Principal Kefele. He is brilliant. He is powerful, and he will knock your socks and shoes off in a minute. And then the last one to go off to follow Brian Martin's shoes here is Jesse Cole. He's the inventor of the Savannah Bananas. So he has a book out called Fans First that I just finished reading, and it has revolutionized the way I'm going to go into next year. It is a brilliant, entertaining, fantastic read. He has a podcast that he hasn't published recently, but it's still really, really good to listen to kind of go through. There's half a dozen or several dozen episodes, but he's just if we can model that guy when his whole mindset is question norms, question the traditions, do what's best for your people, entertain the hell out of people. He's really inspiring. Jesse Cole is his name.
When we finish,
can I add on to that, Josh, real quick?
Yeah, please.
I'm a huge fan of Jesse Cole too, and outside of his podcast, like if you just go into a podcast search and type in Jesse Cole, like I just love his interviews that he does on other podcasts. So not just reading the books, but yeah, he's top notch the way he views things and how we should bring that into education. 100%. It's
Yep.
great suggestion.
So for all the audience, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask our guests to send who should they follow and all those things, and then we'll do a separate post so you have that cheat sheet for 23, 24. And I need to say that very softly as a Hispanic because it comes out bad.
All right, switching gears. Let's go one more time here. Which podcast do you listen to, and who would you recommend and why? Very quickly. Let's start off with Casey.
Give Casey some time to think, man. I
give him wait time on this. I'm going to give him 60 seconds.
So have him go last. He needs some time to think.
Isn't it? All right. Brian, you want to take over?
Sure. I think one of the podcasts that I think you have to listen to is called At the Table. It's by a man named Patrick Lencioni. He's a business guy. They're about 20, 30 minutes long, and they are just on fire when it comes to recommendations on how to deal with conflict. This morning, they had this great discussion about if you don't deal with philosophical issues, that will manifest itself in people issues. And his point is, if you don't address a conversation or if somebody has an idea and you don't wrestle with it, then people are going to leave the room and then they're going to talk about the people who made the comments. And you don't want that. So address the philosophical issues. And I thought, man, that is just brilliant. So At the Table, Patrick Lencioni.
Good stuff. Fonz.
I'm going to go with Punk Rock Classrooms. You definitely, if you haven't checked it out, it's just great take. Very just this conversation, casual conversations. They tell their stories, they tell their experiences, and they tell how, they're honest about how they're dealing with parents, they're dealing with teachers, what they do to overcome those things. And it's just great to hear two real people just having these conversations. And again, gives you great perspective on Principals Workdays.
Ryan.
Yeah, so I would suggest actually, there's so many great educational ones. Go to Teach Better Teams podcast network. Like if you go to the Teach Better Team, go to their podcast network, they'll pop up like 40 of them, 40 or 50, all phenomenal. Justin Sua, who I mentioned earlier, sports psychologist, he puts out a daily one that's about 5 to 6 minutes. Increase Your Impact, it's called. And another one is called Finding Mastery by Michael Gervais. And he's another sports psychology guy that he really dives into these high achievers and how they handle certain situations and really breaks it down so you can see in their mind and how they really accomplish the obstacles along the way.
Good stuff right there. And Casey, thank you to Brian to put you last.
So I'd recommend Thriving Community Schools. It's with Charlie Peck. She does a good job of talking about the mental health issues that all of us are facing from kids, the classrooms, and all of that. So that's a good one to listen to.
Yeah, we had her on. She was fantastic. Absolutely.
Cool.
Hey, Josh.
So, gentlemen, within 30 to 40 seconds, what message do you have for educators out there for 23-24? Casey.
I'm going to just use my tagline, which is keep knocking. I think there's real value in being persistent. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be persistent. And eventually you will see the success that you're striving for.
Fonz.
Easy. It's like, don't let the tech control you. You control the tech. Don't fear the tech. Just get clicky with it. And at the end, just remember what your learning objective is and find the right tool to help you, get to that goal. And that's it.
Ryan Miller.
Dude, every time you say that line, don't get clicky with it. I just, that song, well done. I just presented at the NAESP conference, and one of the taglines that I have in one of my presentations that seem to stick with people is be a llama, lead like a llama. And so if I can just kind of explain that slightly, we all want to be these powerful, strong, confident people that walk into our classrooms, that walk into our schools, and we have the answers. We know what the solution is, and people want to follow us. But I don't know how you guys feel. Sometimes, if not often, I look in the mirror and I realize, dude, you have no business being a leader. You are jacked up. You've got problems, and that can be discouraging. But llamas are placed in front of flock by themselves to take care of and to protect the animals around them, and they, with no fangs, with nothing intimidating about them, they will defend against wolves, against foxes, all because they just care for the people or the flock they've been in charge of. And so sometimes I walk into school and I'm like, just be a llama today. You're charged with taking care of and loving people. Lead like a llama.
Mr. Martin.
Yeah, I would say, find your tribe. Surround yourself with the voices, with the people that are going to fill you up, because there's going to be great days and there's going to be hard days. And those voices can be the people that walk the same hallways that you do. The voices can be the people that you see right here. The voices can be the books that you read or the podcasts of people that you'll never meet, but they're planting seeds in your head. So find the people that you really want to influence you. Pay attention to that.
Josh? Oh, they're up to me. Okay. Finally, how can people get in touch with you? Let's go with Casey first.
It's at Mr. Shirts on Twitter.
Boom. Excellent. Bonds.
All right. It's there. It's at My EdTech Life on all socials. So follow us there and, let's connect. If you have any questions on anything or whatever, I'm always here to help.
Good stuff right there. Brian Miller.
The best way is go to millerbrian.com. All my tags are there. Hang out. Send me an email. I'd love to hear from you.
Brian Martin.
Be Martin Real on Twitter. And just like Fawn said, if you ever need anything, don't feel free to reach out anytime.
JT. Up the A-gap. Come on, man.
Right there.
Bring it.
Right there.
Bring it.
Hey, and you know what? Dean? Normally I finish the show one specific way, right? But I don't want to finish it that way today because
you're deviating. I like that.
Yeah, because you know what? The majority of the time, obviously we follow each other, and I would like to thank everybody on the panel today.
Yeah.
Because I would like to let you know that you have improved me in many different ways. I've laid off for the podcast the last month because I'm rejuvenating myself, and that's my practice when I start school. I do it every morning at the gym. But just know that one way or the other, and specifically, I'd like to give a big shout out to Brian Miller. The other day I was cleaning the garage, and I was listening just to stuff he came across, and he made me think. Because you know what, guys? Everybody out there, whatever chair you sit in at work, we're also human beings. We also have families. And sometimes that stress of juggling all those balls up there, they are taxing. We chose leadership. We chose what comes to it. And I just want to thank you publicly, Brian Miller, for putting yourself out there, bro. That message that you send out there, not anyone would do it. I'm telling you. That is truly not faking the funk. And so everybody else, you guys are, what I feel about you. I stay in touch with you. I love you, care about you. Even this young man up here, that's a high school principal, I care about him a lot. But you know what? That message, Brian, this last 2 weeks, bro, thank you. Thank you. Because I scored a touchdown with you because I was able to self-reflect the last week and a half. So thank you for that message. Brian Martin, thank you. Casey, pleasure meeting you, my man. Well, we finally interacted. Mi hermano, mi carnal. We got to get together here in Texas, just that it's 3 countries. Dean Packard, we scored a touchdown today.
We did score a touchdown, Josh. And guys, really, sincerely, thank you so much for joining us. We know time is precious, but more importantly for everybody out there, if you get a chance, make sure you retweet this out and listen to the words because they have meaning. Everybody, have a great week. Finish strong, and always put kids first.